Oh yes, welcome to this 2025 non-dual IFS Zoom meeting. The many voices of non-dual IFS. I'm just wanting to take a moment to ground. So that you can really fully allow yourself to arrive after the grounding. Sid's going to say a few words and then we're going to open it up to the group. And that was just a little flavor of what's coming up. And everything is by invite here. So if you have parts that are a little bit uncertain about sharing, that's so welcome here and they will be honored. Everything is by invite. So I would like to start off this little grounding exercise by reading what Sid shared on the group, which is really feels like the motto for non-dual IFS, really. It's a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. So the next Buddha is not a person. The next Buddha is a we. It is the living, breathing circle we form. Just notice how it feels to be a we right now in this virtual meeting here. Notice your feet on the floor, the body on the chair. And notice your breath. See if you can really allow yourself to be here as you are. Yes. And just see if you can take a few more conscious breaths. And then the invitation is to open your eyes and take a look around this virtual room that we have here. Have a little look at the faces that are here. If that feels safe, everything is by invite.
as, as we notice each other, what's it like to be this living, breathing sense of we, this connectedness? As you notice how self is here, is revealing itself in as you. What's the most prominent flavor of beingness that you notice here? Like peace, stillness, openness, compassion, connectedness, love. And then my question for you, is it truly limited by the lines on the screen, by your box? Or is this self of Jessica and Ralph's and Raymond's not separate from the self of Sid, Zoe, and Terry? Is it the self? And what's that like when we recognize that connectedness, or in Thich Nhat Hanh's word, interbeing? And then even our parts, as we notice the parts that are here, what are the loudest parts, thoughts, feelings, and sensations that are here right now for you? Is it like, where are we going today? Gosh, this is fun seeing everybody's faces. Oh, I'm a little nervous. I don't know what I'm going to say. Or maybe, gosh, my back hurts. What are the voices of your loudest parts? And then even those, even that intimacy of your parts, are they really foreign to any of us? If I shared my three loudest parts right now, would anything be surprising or foreign to you? Or would it be like, oh, I know that. I know that part. I know this part. Back to you, Laura.
Hmm. Thank you for that invite, Sid. Would there truly be any difference in between these kind of three main parts that help us to navigate, that kind of are the interface in between the inner and the outer? And so actually that's a really beautiful invite to see that not only self helps us to see self in the other, but parts of ourselves are also mirrored in the other. So we really um, we elevate self. Yes, we elevate self above parts. But actually, Sid, you'd invited us to see that if we were to truly share the parts, all of us here right now, we would see that they're very similar parts. And so we have something in common through the parts too.
But this is a celebration of the the Buddha as we, of the we. And so in that it's a celebration of each of us, of how this life is moving, how self is showing up, how parts are revealing themselves in Raymond and Maria and Sarah and Ralph, how resistance comes up, how, gosh, this isn't going well. I'm feeling uncomfortable. I'm not abiding as self as I want to. That too, and Zoe and Sid and Hazel and Terry, all of this. And so we really want to, in just a moment, just to start going around and hearing like from each of us, like how is life moving? It's 2025. What's maybe the exciting aha? How is self showing up? What would you like to celebrate or share with us? Or what's the difficulty? What's the edge? It's like, gosh, I'm just really stuck there for all of us because we're all in this together. It's a celebration of this we. And then, but as we go there, that it's not really that, oh, it's Raymond's turn now. So we're just gonna be and like, oh, we're all like watching Raymond. Different. Like, what's it like when it's Raymond's turn if we get to dive in together into self and parts, into our humanity, into this through Raymond's guidance, his sharing of what's happening in him, because it's not separate. And then just two more quick things. I love what Maria said when we were just getting ready together. She's like, this is so nice because we've been commenting on each other's and posting and connecting virtually on the group and how rich it is just to get to be together, to see each other, to feel each other. Just want to include that. And then also that I push record for our friends that aren't here so that we could post this, but just as balance in respecting everybody's space and their privacy. We're just going to post, it'll just be the images, the squares of me and Laura, but your audio would all be included. And but if anyone has any discomfort at any point with that, at any time, just you could let me know now. I make you a co-host, and then you just click pause on the recording when your time comes up, just so that everybody's comfortable. Uh, and Laura, anything? I have some question to ask as we start going around. And what else do you have, Laura, as we open this up for our for the we?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on what you said, Sid, that as everyone's sharing, can you look at them as though these are my parts sharing? These are my parts sharing. These are our parts sharing. Not seeing the other, but seeing parts in all of us. And can we rejoice in those parts? Like, wow, there's some essence of me that's playing out as this. Wow, that's really cool. That I get to be in multiple places in the world at once, multiple cities. It's just magic.
Oh, Ron's going to be home soon. It'd be good to do your homework soon. Come on. And you need to have a shower tonight too, yeah?
Sorry.
Love that. Parts showing up. Beautiful. So what, Sid, would you
Well,
like to
may I
pick?
say something, Laura?
Yes, Maria.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, or I can hear. We can hear you.
Well, I have been thinking of the vibration, the frequency we share, and I was thinking of something I translated. For the ones who don't know, I am translating Laura's book into Italian because it's something that translating into my language is something that I do as a spiritual voluntary work. And when some um, spiritual material resonates or touches my heart, I just decide to translate into my language, and which is, as you can imagine, not only an intellectual work, but very much a spiritual work and healing itself for me. And it is just delicious, no? Delightful. And as some days ago, I translated something about the tuning fork. I wish to read something, some line from a passage. May I, Laura?
Well, given that we're talking about this resonance, tuning forks sounds like, yeah, please do. Yeah.
Well,
And before you do, and Maria, just before you do this, just for all of us, what's this like for all of us right now as we hear Maria share from her heart and her enthusiasm, just to notice if it's just being met by self, if it's resonating from this self, this joy, and also to notice what parts might be coming up. Oh, wow, I'm curious, what's she going to read? Or what other parts are coming up? And just can they all be welcomed? Can everything be welcomed that's arising here? Please, Maria.
yes. All things, including our inner self, vibrate at certain frequencies. Our self can resonate not just with our inner parts, but also with the selves of others. When a tuning fork is struck, it vibrates at a specific pitch or frequency. If another tuning fork tuned to the same frequency is brought into proximity, the vibration from the first fork will cause the second fork to start vibrating at the same frequency, even if it hasn't been struck. This is due to the phenomenon of resonance, where vibrations transfer energy between two objects. Like tuning forks, our self has the capacity to spread loving kindness throughout our communities through this resonance. This was it. And I think it matches perfectly with what we are doing here and we are sharing here.
Anything, Laura, on your tuning fork?
I'm just ready to resonate with all of these other parts of mine, of ours.
Oh, wonderful. But just to, as we're here, as this circle, as this we, who's got something? Where's the bubbling? Can we feel the bubbling? Where's the bubbling coming? Who's got something that's just bubbling? Oh, I want to share this, or this is how self is for me for this New Year's, or I've got this part. Got something bubbling. Raymond!
I said, there was actually something that Laura said when you guys were just chatting about the structure of the group. And if everything was totally okay all the time, for example, why would I be here? But actually, I feel the complete opposite of that, in the sense that, so I go back to work on Tuesday. I've been off for 17 days. I'm going to do all that AI stuff you were talking about, Laura. And there is a depression that's near me about going back to work, because right here, right now, this feels like my nature. When I go to work, it doesn't feel like my nature. And I think about what Jesus said when he said, be in the world, but not of the world. And so I honestly, and again, I'm saying there's a kind of depression. I don't feel depressed per se. That's there, that's in my atmosphere. But I find it very painful at times just interacting with the world. And not because I hate the world, because I don't, but because it's, for me, the world's like an extension of my own ego, where I've dealt with a lot of that ego in myself. and accepted. So when I go out to the world, I'm meeting hundreds of other egos. And that interaction for me, I feel it very sensitively, where, yeah, this is easy for me to be in a place, in a space where we're all trying to sense into the self, the spirit, whatever you call it, and observing all these parts. That's natural for me. Going outside of that and interacting with the world, that's where it gets, that's where the rubber hits the road.
I have a question for you, Raymond, with this, and just for all of us. What's our version of what Raymond's sharing? Like, do we know this intimately, what he's sharing? Can we find this intimately, what he's sharing? And reservations about certain situations in the world, be it workplace, and like, what are the parts that come up that have that reservation in us? And then my question then, as Raymond describes the being here now in this, I'm curious, and maybe this is a question, curiosity for all of us as we go around. What's the flavor of beingness, of self that you notice here now, Raymond, that's here?
So I think Maria said it correctly, where, so if it's the spirit that's speaking, if it's pure consciousness that's coming up with words and not clever thoughts of mine, then that's going to, it doesn't matter what I say right now, Sid, I could go blah, 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 blah. And if the spirit's here in those blah blahs, you'll feel that. You'll feel it now. And so it's not about clever words or deep insight sometimes. It's just about being near the fire.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Raymond. Anything, Laura, before we go to Terry? I know Terry's got something bubbling. Anything,
I
Laura?
think Terry's ready, isn't she? Let's hear what Terry's got to say. Raymond, thank you so much for that show. It was beautiful. Being near the fire. True. Beautiful. Terry.
Hi, I do got a lot of bubblies going on. Wow. I came in here with, I still have some shy parts. I still, have nice to meet you parts. And so I was just waking up, rubbing my eyes, coming here. And so happy to make it parts. And what's bubbling up for me when I really get in touch with self and parts is they have self in it. It's just beautiful. The image that I got was just this drum skin with all these little things, parts just hitting it with their own little sound, whatever it was, whether it was listening to Raymond and hearing him go off it, like just self having this expansive capacity to just hold everything and just witness it, be with it, get tickled by it, get hurt by it, feel it. If someone says they have to go to the bathroom, then I'm going to feel it too. It's okay. And it's like, let it just be there. And that's what I had, was this like little drum, and you would just throw a pebble against it or something, and just or 5 pebbles at it and just try to experience it. That's just kind of what I felt with the skin of self, or, and it's much deeper than that. That's just the vision that was given to me for it. But what's really bubbling up for me, that self has given me a glimpse, actually an experience of it this year. I'm a chronic pain sufferer for decades now, and I'm having day 11 of no chronic pain. And I'm reading your book, Laura, in a book study group. And so many things have just reached not only out, but down to every cell in my body. Like, can feel connected and have that self energy in it. And if a part begins to twinge, I don't even have to call it pain. I just can say, hi, I see you. I love you, in whatever shape or form. And I can breathe self energy into that part. And, I feel a lot of bubbling hope. I've never seen my body as part of self. And I feel just possibilities opening up, and hope also to give to others. And I've already just started it. That's all I need is 11 days to share this beautiful freedom of hope and just plant a seed of possibility. And I'm hoping, and I'm open too, for the next journey into meeting the fatigue and my lack of mobility, to understand and embrace why I cannot take more than 100 steps, or why I can't stand in one place for 15 minutes without changing positions. But I'm moving past my own conceptions, or any part's conceptions, and seeing what that part wants. That's beautiful. That is pure, like, individuation of each cell in my body, parts of parts, clusters of parts, and ask them to choose. Thank you.
What you got, Laura? All that beauty.
Oh, that was a delicious share, Terry. Thank you so much. That's right. If we give it over to self, self will always carry it. Self will carry every burden, every tiny little thing. Nothing is too heavy, too big for self to carry. That was beautiful.
No, I've got a question. I've got a couple questions for everybody. As we heard Terry, could we hear the Buddha as the we? Are we hearing that in her sharing? And as she spoke of the parts having self in them, as she spoke of what she's seeing and what's opening in her system, as she spoke of self and this capacity to just hold everything, to feel everything. How did that translate for each of us? As she spoke of her curiosity about the limitations of her body going 100 steps, and that limitation, relate to that and the limitations that we find in our systems. As she spoke of this suffering, this chronic pain that's been here, And then there's day 11 of no suffering. Is her system separate from ours? Is this different than anything in our own systems? And as parts come up, as she was describing them, and it's just, well, is there really a problem here? Or is I'm just staying high and welcoming that? And she speaks of this body and never really having known this body as an aspect of self. And then just the getting some glimpses of that, or that opening, a taste of that. How does that translate for us? How do we relate to this body, heart, self? And as we hear what's opening in Terry, as Terry is really guiding us and leading us in her sharing as our facilitation, what's that like in you? That's all I got. Anything else, Laura, before we see who's got the next bubbling?
I think I just wanted to add just the sense of play that Terry shared too, this kind of casting these pebbles at this shaman's drum, the drum of self, the drum of life. And this infinite sounds. No matter how many pebbles you cast, they just ring out unique sounds. Yeah, that's just beautiful, Share. Really gorgeous. I'm seeing Sana's got her hand up. Hey, Sana.
Hi, thank you. I'm really grateful to everyone for sharing all of this because it feels starting to feel like a beautiful symphony building up. And so for me, what often bubbles up is a poem. And just wanted to share, Raymond, as you were talking about how to be in the world, not of the world, or how do we interact with the outside world when we want to be in the um, in the world through self, or just abide there. And it really felt like it connected beautifully to Maria's tuning fork piece as well, is how do we find that rhythm? And Terry, thank you so much for letting us see your shy parts too beyond that. And it can't be easy. So I felt really grateful for that too. Would it be okay if I share the poem in the chat? Is that okay? Yeah, that's it from me. Thank you.
Sana, I wonder whether you'd be willing to read the poem out for us. How would that feel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if everyone's okay with that. Sometimes it's hard with language, and some people prefer to see it. I can just put it in the chat so you can maybe it won't do a good job with the lines. Yeah, the poem is Any Morning by William Stafford. Just lying on the couch and being happy. Only humming a little, the quiet sound in my head. Trouble is busy elsewhere at the moment. It has so much to do in the world. People who might judge are mostly asleep. They can't monitor you all the time, and sometimes they forget. When dawn flows over the hedge, you can get up and act busy. Little corners like this, pieces of heaven left lying around, can be picked up and saved. People won't even see that you have them. They are so light and easy to hide. Later in the day, you can act like the others. You can shake your head, you can frown.
Mm. Mm. Could we find that? What was that like? Did that live in you? Anna, was she speaking about you? Mhm. You think Laura?
Hmm. I was just thinking about, with all the shares, it makes my eyes moist. And what I found is over the years, as I really live from self, there's such tenderness. It's like I just get these moist eyes. Sometimes I rub my eyes, I go, oh, my eyes, I didn't even know that they were getting moist. And of course, tears have different properties, If you study tears microscopically, what you'll find is that they have different properties. Some might have cortisol in them, some might, different qualities. But what I recently found or read was that when we shed tears or sweat, there are some tiny particles of gold that we are shedding. Not enough, obviously, to harvest and be rich from. But and it made me think of, wow, when we glisten, when we've been for a jog or work out in the gym and there's that lovely sheen, we actually are glowing with gold. And I really loved that because it also made me think, that Japanese art of fixing objects with gold. And and then I thought about, how Jung says 90% of the shadow is gold. I actually think Jung was slightly wrong on that. I think 100% of the shadow is gold. But the point I'm trying to make is that we glow. We glow. When we come from self, we glow, and it makes us glow. It makes the eyes water. So, yeah, as I listened to Terry's share and to Sana's poem, I just thought, oh my gosh, my eyes are watering. It's really nice.
Oh, and when we hear Laura say that 100% of the shadow is glow or is love, whatever, as you hear that, you have parts that are like, well, I don't know about that. What comes up with that? And then let me just pause for just a moment with the logistic thing because I'm gonna do this with just me and Laura as far as the images showing. Could we try when things are bubbling to like raise our physical hands and then Laura and I can stay in the same corner together and it just makes it easier for me. I just was trying to figure this out as we go. But back to the back to the glow. Like what's that when we hear that line, 100% of our shadow, what rises in you? And also we want to be able to celebrate everybody. It just we haven't heard from Jessica, Zoe, and Sarah, who I just know well, and I know they're most often comfortable sharing what's here, but also there's no need to ever say anything or anything, but it's just want to hear what's going as we start this 2025. What's going on with everybody? What's going on with you guys? What do you want to share? Or what happens when you hear that quote from Laura? Who's got something bubbling?
And I think maybe just to add that we could have, the same people going multiple times if anyone's feeling called to share.
Raymond!
I'd like to add something, Laura, and it is something about the unburdening I'm going through these days, and which is so Christmassy. Is it an English word, Christmassy? Hello. Well, anyway,
It is.
I just want to say that these days are really full of light. I mean, I'm experiencing lots of light these days, which is quite new to me. I mean, I haven't always been this way. I was rather serious, even though you think that Italians are all happy and laughing and chatting. That's not true. That's a stereotype. I was quite serious, and I've been going through an unburdening of my parts. By the way, IFS, I found out only recently, and it came to me together with recognition of self, because I was on progressive paths, which are okay. I mean, I was absolutely happy in progressive communities. Then suddenly, and in a very spontaneous way, I had this overwhelming recognition. I didn't even know what it was. And then I found you. And this to say that everything is proceeding very quickly. And these days, I am been going through this enormous unburdening. And I have just released a lot of grieving in the background that was always there, even if I was happy, if I mean in good situations. And these days I have been going through this healing and deep touching process. And I can tell you that this playfulness that I knew as a child, but then I just maintained as an old ancient memory, is coming back. And so this playfulness is not only a word anymore, but all my cells are imbued. Imbued? Is it right? Imbued with this playfulness that was, I mean, something that as a child I knew very well. Then I forgot. Now it is back. And so among some little problems of shyness and blah, 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 there is this excitement, this feeling together, this which is really precious and new and so Christmassy. And I have to thank you too, and because when I left my progressive community, that I loved very much actually, I didn't leave them because of anything. It was just leaving the family because I was in love with somebody else, with something else, with the self that they talk about in progressive on progressive paths, but self isn't seen yet as part of you. I mean, it's still something to reach, not something that we are, that we already are. And this is it. Thank you.
Maria had to leave because she was in love with somebody else.
Yes.
She was in love with the self. And we find that. How's that play in us? Love with the
So when you
self.
are brave enough to leave something, you find something new.
Yes.
And
Love with the self.
yes,
And
it's a love story.
a love
It's a love story.
story. A love story. A love story. And she also described this playfulness that which she was finding throughout all of her cells.
Yes.
Pervasive playfulness like we had as children. What about in each of us? How does that translate? And maybe it's not playfulness. Maybe you have another word for it. Maybe it's innocence. Maybe it's openness. It's ease. It's
Yes.
celebration. For each of us, what do you find as this playfulness? Laura?
Oh, Maria, that was so gorgeous. I have these little parts. I have so many parts who absolutely adore Christmas. Christmas is like their favorite time of the year. And Christmas is like a magnifying glass. Yeah. Whatever you're feeling, or whatever your parts are feeling, that will come clearer and it will come up to the surface. And I've always had these sweet little innocent parts who just absolutely adore Christmas. So for me, a Christmassy feeling is joy, is playfulness. And I just want to say it's sort of finding out really that Santa is real. But it's not the Santa that we've been taught. It's really the real one. It's the self. It's the lover.
Yes.
You know? And it's just joyful. It's just joyful. Oh, I have parts that are very, very pleased and happy right now. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Where's the bubbling? Who's got bubbling? Raymond.
Yeah, again, I'm going back to something I think maybe Laura that said it about what separates us. We're looking at the screens and what separates us. And I actually started crying when Terry was speaking, real crying. But it was nothing to do with Terry's story about, her acceptance and the presence of self that came from you, Terry, when you were speaking. I feel like the Doors song, that says, come on, baby, light my fire. There was like, that's what I felt when you were speaking. That's what made me cry. I really felt the self in me comforting me in what I'd shared previously about my own sense of difficult energies. But what separates us? And so when you were speaking, Terry, you were talking about everything. There was no separation. There was everything. And just when you said there, Laura, about the magnifying glass, my attention is the magnifying glass. So whatever I'm paying attention to is what gets magnified. So as I said, you know, and even when Terry was speaking, it was very evident to me that Terry's magnification was on the self because the attention was drawn to the self. So there's nothing that separates us, nothing, except where our attention may be diverted elsewhere. Nothing.
How are we doing with that when we hear that from Raymond? Nothing that divides, that separates us from self. Does that play in your system? Do parts respond, or is there just a resonance, the tuning fork that we started with at the beginning today? Like a tuning for a resonance, or do parts say, oh, maybe, or yeah, somewhat? And just before we go, do what Terry has to say on this and what Laura has to say, just this absence of separation. Just to go back to where we began with Laura today, when she spoke of when she was sharing Thich Nhat Hanh's words of the next Buddha is a we. It is the living, breathing circle we form. What's that like as we continue today as the nine of us? Living, breathing circle. Perhaps with Raymond's words, without separation. Laura?
I'm just hearing more and more pebbles being thrown at this drum. So it's beautiful. More and more sound. Really gorgeous. Terry.
Yeah. The drum, I don't know where that came, but it arose as a way to speak here. The word Christmassy, so many layers, and if, it's so funny. A long time ago, during like a celebration, kind of mixed with out of something really difficult, I got a chance to pick one thing to write, to inscribe, engrave. And I picked To Thine Own Self Be True. And I kind of chuckle. I chuckle now because I'm like, and which self might that be? How can I be true to them all? And I'm kind of laughing because, in this Christmas time, there are so many parts in others that I witnessed. It was Christmassy bright, and another person said to me, Chris Mess, Mess. And I'm like, yeah, it's all of this. It's all of this. And each person, as they shared, or each part of myself that shared, there's truth in all of it. There's truth in all of it. And and was my magnifying glass able to really validate it all? And the answer was yes, it was. this Christmas. And even, being part of spaces where I could help be part of holding open spaces for whoever arose and whatever they talked about in an IFS peers, self-led. We don't have therapists. And well, some do, some don't. I can't say that for sure, but it was so beautiful that just to open a space for whoever needed to be there. And why ever. And keep that open for whatever needed to show up. And I'm starting to really, well, a little bit more than starting, I'm really inviting. My system feels safe enough to open my attention to everything more and more, even the terrified, even the terrified, even the shame could shed some Christmas light on it. There's beauty in the mess, because I'm a hot mess. I'm still dealing with the crash and burn and the phoenix and everything all at the same time. Had to retire due to ordinary disability, but now I'm finding heaven in retirement. It was fear, but it's not anymore. And I love that poem. Oh my God. There's little corners like this, places of heaven lying around, can be picked up and saved. Loving this, loving everybody here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. What was that like for all of us as Terry is guiding, facilitating, leading us through her sharing? As she talks about the Christmas, the mess. We relate to that. Anybody have any kind of difficulties over the holidays or any parts that come up and say, no, I don't like this so much? Raymond's like, I want to go back to work. Or being with family, what might have arisen inside, right? And then as we hear Terry's exquisite system, as she's been describing it to us today, as it's been opening, and she said, there's this open space for whoever needs to be here. Whoever needs to be here inside, there's an open space for that. And for whatever, why ever, those parts need to be here, an open space for them. She says there's beauty even in the mess. Beauty even in the mess. And as we describe her system, start to open up to even the terror and shame, even the terror and shame. What's this like for us? And it goes back to what Laura was sharing about, for her, 100% of the shadow is this glow, including it all. And then can we just notice the self as self in parts, that it just welcomes and loves things just as they are. So for most of us, especially like my system, I have limitations on this, on what it can be open for and included. There's like, yes, all of that, but what, you really want me to go to that terror and that shame? Not right now. Not right now. And so can we also include just the gentle, we could feel the gentleness in Terry's, it was so beautiful, the gentleness in how Terry's system was opening. And can we, just as we welcome that, can we welcome the same in ours? Or when, well, 100% of the shadow, I don't think so. Maybe, maybe 80%. That, and just, can we just, what you got, Laura?
I'm just really pleased that you clarified what Terry said about the Christmas, the mass, because I thought she was meaning mass, as in like the mass of us. But I think what you said was about mess, and mess, mass, whatever. It's but when she was saying mass, I was like, oh gosh, I hadn't even thought of that. It's like a mass of joy. But I think she might have meant mess, so thank you for that, Sid. The Mass of Christ, Christ Mass. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. It sort of made me. For a moment, I had a part that says, did you get that wrong? There was a part that said, did you get that wrong? She actually meant mess, as Sid said. And I thought, oh, but it's the same part that sees hearts in everything. I go out for a walk and all the leaves and puddles and everything is just hearts. It's like, are you telling me something here? So yeah, hearing the love and seeing the love in everything.
What's bubbling? What comes up as Terry's beautiful facilitation of us? What's bubbling for us? Oh, Laura, you probably like said we don't do that. We shouldn't do that. But I just know Sarah, Jessica, and Zoe so well, and something in me, I don't want to miss. I just like, I have to ask again if there's anything there because I enjoy them so much with what they share, and no need, but if there's anything bubbling with my friends.
Hey there. There is something bubbling. It's, I guess there's a bit of a struggle around finding the words today. But I do want to voice for all my parts the amount of healing that they have experienced this year in their relationship with self. And these parts didn't really believe that healing was possible. They couldn't really envisage it or visualize it or know how it could happen. And yet these parts have experienced really deep healing over the last 12 months. And I still can't find the words to explain how or why or where or any of that. There aren't any words for what happened in the relationship. I just know that parts were seen and welcomed and accepted and loved and heard and kind of transformed into being able to glow. I just giving voice to that as my reflection on 2024. And at the same time, it feels like this is a kind of liminal space for me. I've got one foot in 24 and I've got one foot in 25. And parts like certainty. And there isn't any other than knowing that self is still there and is there and is still holding and will always be there. Yeah, and so there's also kind of trepidation, I guess, a kind of it's today unusually I'm looking out over lots of snow. We have lots of snow here. And what I love today, and I don't experience this very often, is the stillness and the silence which comes with snow. And it's like parts or kind of just treading really quietly and delicately across this kind of snow landscape somehow. And yeah, it's uncertain what's there. And there's this sense of treading lightly, treading delicately at the moment. And just not knowing what's there. I guess I'm going to find out at some point as 2025 progresses. But yeah, that's where I am.
Wow. Thank you, Zoe. What was this like for us as we heard her share about what happened for her parts? They were heard. You have parts that are like, yes, that happened for me. And parts are like, I want more of what Zoe's parts found. I want more of what Zoe's parts found. They were heard, she described. They were heard. They were welcomed. They were accepted. They were loved. Heard. They were welcomed. They were accepted. They were loved. And with that, he describes they were transformed into this being able to glow. Do our parts respond to that? He described that in her system, that parts like certainty. Can we relate to that? Do you find that that's the nature of many or all of your parts, that they like certainty? And she described they're not being able to find that certainty other than that self is still here. Self is here. Everybody, Raymond's about to leave us as we explore this. So wave goodbye to Raymond and just sort of thank you, Raymond. Thank you for your gifts and thank you for your gifts. And then what's that for us? The parts that long for certainty perhaps can't find the certainty that they're longing for. I need to leave too. Oh, Sarah. Sarah, give us a final word. Give us a word. Give us a farewell. What you got?
Oh, Happy New Year.
Mm.
I really hope it's a year full of happiness and joy, good things. I had a lot of parts come up today, so thank you so much. Maria, I really resonated with your share. I've been doing some inner child healing the past few days and had a lot of grief work and a lot of inner children, inner infant and inner toddler, and they're just really emotional and just just really activated in my system the past few days and today as well. And I really struggled to just contain that feeling, you know, because it was just overflowing everywhere. I just burst into tears out of the blue, and I realized, oh, that's my inner something having a tantrum or something. And maybe it's the holidays as well. Um, and and then there was something about little Miss Chatterbox that wants to talk so much, and she's not allowed to speak. And yeah, just trying to keep her just in a box and I feel like now she's coming out. She wants to talk about it. Okay, that's okay. Yeah, that's okay. You can talk about. And I remember a forgetful part, a protector that makes me forget things. And around the end of the year and the new year, it remembers the whole year and everything that happened, and then it remembers all the other New Years before and all the other holidays and everything that happens, and it's just really struggling to forget things, this part. And I just really appreciate it for doing its part. He's just really trying really hard to forget. And I'm just trying really hard to let it know that it's okay to remember stuff. It's okay to have memories. It's just fine and we can handle it. Oh, it's a lot. And I just feel my system activating right now and I have to be somewhere else. So yeah. So just thank you for letting me quickly share.
Thank you, Sarah,
Thank you
for
so much.
that celebration. Thank you.
Bye.
Gosh, just have just another moment. It's that, you know, just with what Sarah was sharing, just what's it like to feel that resonate, your tuning fork with Shara's bubbly joy. And then lastly, with our tuning fork, Zoe laid out this image for us of the white snow and her parts that were kind of uncertain or looking for certainty. Yeah, thank you, Terry. And that her parts were treading delicately this 2025, treading delicately. As we hear her describe that in her system, is there not just love and appreciation and understanding of those parts that are treading delicately in her? And similarly, can we find those in our own system? The parts treading delicately. Oh, thank you so much, Zoe. How exquisite. Laura, where do you go?
Yeah, Zoe's quite nearby, so it's been snowing here too. And I treated myself to most of the morning up until this Zoom call in bed, and it was just luscious. It was gorgeous. I was writing this article, and I could hear the children from the neighborhood outside playing, throwing snowballs at each other, building snow people, and it's like, yes, yes, this is so perfect that parts of me get to rest in bed and other parts of me get to be out there and play. And that felt really good. That felt really, really nourishing. You know, that life just carries on. So I was so pleased. I was pleased to be able to hear the sound. Children are just sheer joy. I cannot explain. I think if someone was to say to me, Laura, for the rest of your life now, you're going to spend hanging around with little ones, I'd be like, yes, that's like my dream job. Let me be with these young ones. They are just perfect. So that was what came up for me when Zoe was sharing about it. Just this kind of contrast in between the stillness, slowness that I was feeling and these child parts that were playing. It was really nice. Oh, lovely. Terry's back. Yes, yes, please.
Oh, wow. There's so much that I resonate with, and thank you for bringing these images into my system too, with trepidation, walking lightly on the snow. And my beingness can remember walking on the snow and wondering, what was I hurting underneath the snow with each step? With the grass, with the other beings in there, be okay with each step. So I would walk ever so lightly. And when it snowed, there was a hush that always came, identify with that hush, and that hushed, silent connection between everything as everyone's houses and rooftops looked the same. And it was such a beautiful connection. I would wonder on it. I'd just meditate on it with my eyes or my heart and feel that glistening and sparkle of each snowflake that made up what we call snow. And I could see them. Sometimes I could see a little snowflake glisten. And it was just remarkable. And that it had a touch and a feel and a reaction on my body, the snow too, making it cold and then my hands really, really warm after. It was just such a, and not wanting to mark that beauty of snow, not wanting to be the first footprint. And then wanting to get all my footprints on the snow or make patterns in the snow. And I love the idea and the children with it. And yet what I have been finding with this work are not just the inner children that just get so much focus on in this work, but the adult selves in me that have suffered and really, really bringing love to those and not just dismissing or running towards the inner child, but spending time with the adult selves in myself, the adult parts. My parts don't necessarily appear like people. Sometimes they are monsters. I've had monsters. Sometimes they're animals. Sometimes they're an essence or a vision or a playlist. Like Raymond said before, come on, baby, light my fire. You know, what I'm hearing now on my playlist is We Are the World. Thanks.
Mhm. What was that like for all of us? We have about 12 minutes left together in our celebration time. That like as Terry walked us into the snow, hearing the hush came with the snow and the silent connectedness. Where do we find that? Do we find that through snow? Do we find that through the ocean? When do we find that silent connectedness? And then there was a sense she described with the fresh snow, not wanting to mark it, not wanting to step into it, wanting to mark it from the beauty that she saw, the fresh snow that covered everything. The houses were all the same, all in that white, the pristine, perhaps pristineness of self, just as it is. And did you not smile? I smiled as she described. And then I just wanted to step all over it, to put footprints everywhere, to make patterns. It's like the life, the expression of the parts. Did that play in you? And then lastly, when she talks about just fully including all of her adult parts, and that sometimes the adult parts show up, they can be scary as monsters, animals. How do they show up in your nightmares? How do they show up for you? And again, the capacity game, like yes, some of those I can accept, I can be with, I can really love and see the white snow in them. I can see the essence, the beauty in them. and that there are others that, well, that's just a little too much. I'm not ready for that yet. Laura?
Yes, that's all I've got. Yes, that was beautiful. The both and of noticing that still pristine canvas, that glistening radiance and presence of self. And then the parts just wanting to play and be in it and bathe in it.
Look at the snow over Zoe's window. Oh, where'd it go?
Show us, Zoe.
And I think what's important to sort of highlight here is that the non-dual teachings don't pedestal one over the other. You know, there's no competition in between silence versus noise, or stillness versus movement. There are some teachings that would try to play some kind of pedestal stillness and silence, and we can add some other words, beauty and love and innocence, whatever, but that's not how it truly is. There's no separation in between what we might call something as beautiful, something that's monstrous. It's the same. So that's the real teaching. This is the both and that I think our wonderful non-dual group, non-dual IFS group, is so fantastic at holding this truth of the both and. I'm just so thankful, Sid, for our group, for you, for all of us, that we can be strong enough and soft enough to hold the both and. Wow. Really is a hero's journey to be able to be with both of those and not to go into this is better, that's worse. I want this, I don't want that. Yeah.
I love how we're giving this to each other. This like what Terry speaking of the monsters, right? For many of us, it's like there's a no way to that. But as we hear her speaking of how it's opened in her, we get to see the possibility of the monsters being welcomed and loved, and truly the both and developing the capacity for it all. Thank you, Laura. Back to you, Laura.
Nothing further to add. This is just perfect as it is. So maybe just the one final call out for anyone else that wants to share. We've got about 5 minutes left. Anything that's glistening in you that wants to shine.
Oh, Jessica.
Okay, I'm gonna try to share. I also don't really know what to say, but I feel like, I don't know, something in me wants to try. Um, it's so busy in here. And I've sort of been waiting for parts to settle down. because it's hard to even know what thread to pull out and put words to. And there was something Raymond had said earlier about this moving from this space to the workspace, and just the different spaces we can be in. And my system plays with that a lot, how to show up in different spaces and which parts are showing up. And I have this longing in me to lay down my armor. And I'm noticing right now there's a real big theme of safety. And where are safe spaces, but also how am I making spaces safe for myself and for others? And I really felt what Raymond was talking about, like the rawness of wanting to show up open and vulnerable. And then feeling like I walk into spaces where that's not really possible, or it would maybe be harmful. And even parts might think it's harmful and it would be fine, but there's still an armoring around that. Yeah. And just, I think that's part of just also why it's so busy in here right now is my parts are just noticing, just, like it's a big space of transition of figuring out where might be safe that I didn't think it was, and how do I create safety where it wasn't there, and just all of that.
Jessica, I loved your sharing so much, and it was so perfect that you shared it just after Laura's bringing it all together about the both and. But like your share just got to the very heart of what we were doing. And it's like we could feel, I could feel that tension as you were describing it inside of you. And it allowed me to go deeper into that tension inside of my own system and including that, and not trying to get away from it, including that tension, including that busyness. Thank you. Laura?
Nothing further to add. Let's see if Terry wants to send us off with a sweet lullaby.
Oh my, Jessica, that was so beautiful. Your armored parts. My armored parts, one of my first parts in IFS was this, those water bugs, the roly-polies, they look like an armadillo, and you touch them and they roll into a ball. Well, that was the image that I came up, but mine was black. And it was almost like my whole person would shut down with those, those shields, the armor, boom, 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 and kind of close me into a little ball. And this part didn't want to close its eyes. And I was with this part, and it was just a black ball. And it chose not to close its eyes. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this was like my first experience, and one of the first experiences in IFS. This big, huge white bird out of nowhere, flying bigger than a town. I mean, bigger than 100 rooftops. Transparent. Flies down and eats this roly-poly black metal, hard, closed, surrendered, done, retired, never, just is done, doesn't want to participate. And this bird just right and watching swallows it. And there's fear from the part and confidence from the bird. And then knowing this conversation that says, I'm placing you in my breast. You will fly with us wherever we go. I'm going to place you in my breastplate. You are perfect for here. And when you want to, along this journey, you are welcome to open your eyes. But you're part of us. And from that moment on, I've been okay with kind of a forced retirement. And that part's okay. That's what came to me in this beautiful process. And this white bird has also been able just to sit with parts, just open its wings and just be with everything. And it's not just the white bird doesn't come all the time, only sometimes. That's okay, but other parts visit parts. It's really such a beautiful interior and becoming an even more beautiful exterior. Real interaction, interplay is a word, and interweave. The the esoteric and exteric, the interior, the exterior. It's just getting more connected and safer as a whole because we begin to recognize familiar parts in our systems and in our universes. Even have compassion for Mother Earth when she has an earthquake, or a pending meteor outside, or a storm that's hitting that might flood rivers. At least I feel a heart for it all, not an ignorance, but more of an embrace for all that is. And I just so appreciate this process and a faith and a goodness beyond which I can ever see or know. But no, I experience now with this hope. I experienced that safety. No one could say it doesn't exist. In our subjective processes of meeting whatever exists in ourselves, the universe gets revealed. It's a wow. It's a big wow. And it all happens in the now, being with the breath in the moment and whatever arises, and making conscious contact with a greater power in ourselves and outside ourselves. It's possible. I mean, that I even have the words to say this from a person that because I had a part that said, time to die. And now there are all these parts that it's time to live, time to be with. So, yeah, that's the experience. All things are possible with self. Thanks.
Thank you, everybody. What a beautiful time today. Forward to seeing you in our group. Your name pop up. Thank you for your gifts today. See you later.